Hi, it's Steve. In this video, we'd like to show you how to replace the evaporator fan motor on your refrigerator. It's a really easy repair. Let me show you how we do it. Now, before we begin this repair, the first thing we'll need to do is to disconnect power to the appliance. So either pull it far enough forward that you can unplug it, or locate the electrical panel and turn off the appropriate breaker, or remove the appropriate fuse. Once we've done that, we can start the repair. Now that we've disconnected the power, our next step will be to remove the shelving inside of the refrigerator. Our evaporator fan motor is located in behind that evaporator cover, so we need full access to that. So we're simply going to remove any items that are on the shelves and then the shelves themselves. Now, once we have all of those items removed, we can continue with the repair. Now, with the shelving out of the way, we're next going to remove these 4 retaining screws that secure that evaporator cover. Now we'll carefully lift that cover away. In behind on the right-hand side, we're going to find a ground wire attached to that, so don't pull it out too far yet. Tilt it back until we locate that ground wire. Unclip that from the cover and remove that and just set it aside. Now, with the cover removed, our next step will be to disconnect the wire harness connector to that motor. Simply release the locking tab by lifting up on it and separate the harness. Next, we'll remove the 2 mounting screws for the evaporator fan motor bracket. On this model, there are 5/16 hex head screws. And be sure to support that unit as you remove the last screw. Now, next, we'll need to separate that housing. There is a rear mounting bracket that clips into the front bracket, so we'll need to separate those. We can begin by removing the fan blade. Simply pull it off of the shaft and set it aside. Then, using a flat blade screwdriver, go into that opening and just pry up on that rear bracket enough that it releases the clip. Do the same for the opposite side. And you can pull the front of that bracket away from the motor. There is a rubber isolation washer that is attached there as well. You can pull that off, slide it over the shaft, separate the motor from the rear of the housing, and discard the old one. Position the motor into that isolation bushing. Now, once that bushing is firmly placed on the motor, we're ready to put the front bracket on. We need to make sure that we have that in the proper direction. The mounting tabs should face towards the motor, and the large portion of that bracket sits on the top. So I want to make sure that the wire harness comes out on the right. We'll simply line up those tabs, make sure that the isolation bushing fits into that front housing, and we're simply going to squeeze both halves of the housing together until those locking tabs engage. Now we're ready to put the fan blade back on. Press it all the way onto the shaft until it bottoms out. And now we can mount the assembly back into the refrigerator. Simply line up the screw holes. Reconnect the wire harness, making sure that the locking tab engages. Now we'll place the evaporator cover into the refrigerator and reconnect that ground wire. Now carefully tilt that cover into place. Now to properly position that rear cover, we'll need to line up these top two holes with this protrusion for the shelf. Receptacles for the screws are directly behind that. And repeat the procedure on the opposite side. And once we have that evaporator cover secured to the cabinet, we're ready to start putting our shelving back in. We'll begin with putting the crisper shelf in place first. Make sure it drops down into place, and then we'll put the glass in next. And make sure that drops into position properly. We'll next replace the crisper drawers. Make sure they're pushed back all the way. And our meat pan. Again, make sure that it's pushed back firmly. We can close up the door. And then we're ready to reposition the fridge. Now we're ready to push the refrigerator back into place, reconnect the power, and your repair is complete.